7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, and welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. It is our NCAA show. We got two in the studio today, myself and Token Tony. Token, we missed you last week. What happened to you?
I was hanging out with this girl, so.
Well, we know that's not true.
For real. I'll show you a picture of her later.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I want to see that one. I mean, I can Google search rando chick, but how did your NFL picks go last week? Because Spike has been lazy, and I know he did not do well because he refuses to send us the Excel file.
Yeah.
When I asked him for it, I think I got a barrage of "fuck you, you fucking fucktard fuck." So
that's actually probably putting it easy.
that might have been the censored version. Yeah.
Yeah. It started off good. Went 4-1 in the morning games, and then took a nosedive and lost the last two.
Yeah.
So, but
enough.
my 3-gamer, I went 3-3. So,
how you feeling for college this week?
all right.
Weird slate today, or weird slate going on this weekend.
Yeah, I feel all right. Not as confident as last week. Last week I went 4-1 with my play. So,
Yeah, well, you didn't show up, so we don't know.
yeah.
The other voice you're going to hear on the rest of this podcast is the boss, the CEO, the all things. I think he does it all at the 12-ounce sports. Beck is with us all the way from, I believe, Cleveland, Ohio. What's going on, my friend?
Just south.
Just south?
Yeah.
Kentucky?
Yeah. Not that far south. Yeah, we're near Canton. And some of you know me as Beck, the janitor, the accountant, the CEO, whatever you want to call me.
The utility.
The Captain Lou calls me the Godfather. I don't know if that fits.
Oh, that might.
And
You go.
that could fly, maybe.
You go undefeated in your college picks this week. I will definitely call you it.
We're not worthy.
Actually, I'm actually riding high. I'm glad I'm on a college football show because I put some money down on Temple last night, and surprisingly, they were a 1-point favorite, and it paid out pretty well. I bet 50-142. So I'm riding high right now.
Yeah, I mean that's a good spot. That's a good spot to make money because USF is a complete dumpster fire, even at home.
I couldn't believe the line was only one.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is I couldn't believe USF is actually still turning the lights on to play a game. They just need to shut that program down. But, all right, so let's talk a few things before we get into the games because, I mean, you know, on this show we don't generally like to talk about what's going on that's a fad or a trend, except for Antonio Brown's latest antics, but we'll save that for the NFL pod. However, I have decided I'm going to take the bait because you know how much I hate talking about college football playoff rankings. But I'm gonna bite. Before we do that, let's pay some bills though. We obviously want to thank Beck and 12-Ounce Sports Radio for putting us on every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday and Saturday are NCAA shows. Sunday is our NFL Picks podcast. Seat Giant, promo code 12-Ounce Sports for discounts on all of your sporting events, concert, and theater tickets. All right, bills are paid. Let's get back into Token's getting a call.
Uh-oh.
And he has hung up. All right, so like I said, we'll take the bait. We'll talk about the playoff. And because I will tell you this, I didn't watch Token, the actual playoff show, because who the hell has time for that? But I got to say, I was rather surprised at the actual top 4 seeds, not necessarily 3 of them, but Penn State coming in number 4. I don't disagree with it.
I'm a little surprised,
but I think that's the beauty of having 4. I think everybody just assumed Clemson would be the 4th just because of being the national champion, defending national champion.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they just wanted to up the Big Ten a little or something like that. Maybe create some mayhem. Or with Penn State facing Minnesota this week.
That's correct. Yeah, you're correct.
They wanted a 4-against-17 matchup for the playoffs. So.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is I believe Minnesota was ranked just outside the top 10, and for the playoff committee to rank them 17.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, especially the top 4 that they actually named, Beck, it's largely irrelevant because this week we got LSU, Alabama, and then I believe in 2 weeks, correct me if I'm wrong, we have OSU, Penn State.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ohio State's got Maryland this week, Rutgers next week, so 2 byes, and then they play Penn State.
Okay, so 3 weeks.
If you read, if you read my article, I put an article out this week. I think the top 4 was done on purpose by the committee. I don't think they're making a statement about Clemson's schedule. I think they're making a statement about how they're always trying to tell us the regular season's a playoff, and they know all 4 of these teams play each other in the next couple of weeks. So yeah. I think that was almost like a marketing ploy.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, the thing is the reason other than to get us talking, which I mean, obviously it's been done. The playoff on November 8th is largely irrelevant. I remember a couple years ago, Token, like they put Texas A&M in, knowing they full well had to play Alabama, knowing full well Alabama was going to steamroll them. But I think just for that 1 or 2 weeks, to raise Alabama stock, and not only that, but to put a little life in the SEC again. You know, yeah. I mean, not a little life, but what's the word I'm looking for? Pump up the SEC. Yeah. I mean, as if they needed any more ball watching.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like with the Big Ten. I mean, too. I mean, it just.
Well, for I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Beck, because this is your area of expertise a little bit. The Big Ten has been shut out the last 2 years.
Yeah, they thanks to my Ohio State when we got dropped 50 on our head by Iowa, and then the year before, I'm trying to think of who we faltered against, but that's kept Indiana, us out of the playoff.
I was thinking.
No, we beat them that year.
Okay.
It was a close game with Indiana that year.
Purdue, right? Purdue.
Oh, Purdue. That's right. Purdue. Yes.
Yeah. So.
Which who knows where they came from? So we haven't been in a couple years.
Right. So now in the initial playoffs to have 2 teams, like you said, obviously they're going to play each other. That will virtually eliminate Penn State, I believe, if they lose. Mm-hmm. Beck, do you think that'll eliminate Ohio State if they lose, or is that really going to depend on by how much, or what do you think?
Here's my feeling. I think there's going to be 2 SEC teams in the playoffs. I think that's already been determined. And I think that the Big Ten, with 1 loss, is going to have a hard time getting in because you have 2 SEC teams. There's no way in the world Clemson's going to lose. So then who are they going to put in? If Oregon runs the table or Utah runs the table, they can make the claim they can say, hey, we lost in week 3. Ohio State lost in week 10. Yeah. And that could be a case to keep the Big Ten out again. I just think the Pac-12s, the Big 12s, and the Big 10s have a tougher road to haul if they have a loss versus what the SEC's got to go against.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, and let's not get it twisted. I mean, no disrespect to the SEC, but after LSU, Alabama, and Georgia, I mean, you could talk about Florida and Auburn, but, I mean, I would say if you're talking about UGA, what happens here? Picture this scenario, Token. UGA meets up with, let's just say, Louisiana or LSU, Louisiana State. Nobody calls them that. Let's just say Georgia meets LSU in the final. Alabama loses to LSU by 1 to 3 points this weekend. Mm-hmm. And then Georgia beats LSU in the SEC title game. Who gets left out? Because remember, we saw Auburn get left out after losing but beating Alabama when Alabama got in. I think that would create the biggest clusterfuck of SEC bias I think the playoff could ever witness.
Well, I think it also comes down to is Tua going to play this week or not. If he doesn't play, that might give them more of a reason to play Alabama. And if they do happen to lose this week and run,
that's also true, especially if they only lose by a field goal or so with Mac Jones at the helm. Yeah. Does that say more about Alabama or LSU in that spot? But I mean, it's not like it's unprecedented that Alabama, who didn't even play in a conference title game, has been put in the playoff.
Yes.
And won the national title that year.
Yeah. That's
so
mind-blowing.
And then Georgia, who virtually anybody who's not an SEC huge super fan, everybody believes Georgia, Auburn, and Florida are all but eliminated. But, I mean, there's a sliver of hope that Florida could get in the SEC East race, even despite, Georgia would have to lose 2 games here, which seems highly unlikely
it is
at that point. Mizzou's a tough matchup, but let's not get crazy here.
Yeah.
You're right. Beck, you're right. Clemson just has to control their own destiny, win out, which is very easy to do. The only real test I think they have is maybe Wake Forest at home, and let's be honest, it's not too much of a test.
They'd probably be a 21-point favorite in that game at least.
But Beck, yeah, exactly. But Beck, I mean, did the committee? And this is stupid to say, but I'm going to ask the question anyway because today's Take Debate Day. Did the committee get it right by doing this to Big Ten to SEC, or do you think they just filled an agenda to get us all talking? Like, how is Clemson number 5?
I think A, they got us talking. B, I think they're trying to appease the Big Ten just a little bit. And C, I think they know full well it's meaningless. We have, 5 undefeated teams, at least 5 major conference undefeated teams. They already know it's going to sort itself out. So why wouldn't they drop Clemson to make a little bit of news and headlines and get a little buzz going when they know it's not going to mean anything? I mean, Clemson might be number 2 at the end of this. LSU and Alabama might both lose on the way. Who knows? If Georgia wins out and South Carolina keeps winning, suddenly Georgia looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the committee knows going into this that this is the first ranking. We got a ton of football to play. Let's just try to put together some kind of honest ranking, but also get people talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's take away, or not take away, I guess. Let's move down to some other teams. Like you talked about major programs being undefeated. You have Minnesota, which we talked about. Obviously, we have the game this week against Penn State. That's obviously going to either eliminate them or move them up. I mean, they're 17.
Yeah.
I mean, if they beat Penn State, I mean,
I think they go about 8th or something.
But that's the crazy thing. You're telling me Penn State's one of the 4 best teams in the nation. I think if Minnesota beats them, and Token, check on this for me. Where's that game at? I believe it's in Minnesota. But
it's in Minnesota. In fact, Penn State and the Big Ten tried to move that to a night game, and Minnesota refused, which was funny. They wanted a noon game. Yeah, I think on purpose.
Yeah, it's in Minnesota.
But it's in Minnesota.
But you have that. Not only that, the team no one's really talking about, and Beck, you mentioned Oklahoma running the table, which obviously that would include beating this team, is Baylor. I mean, Baylor opens up at number 12 behind Oklahoma, and Oklahoma stands in their way. But, I mean, if a team like Baylor wins the Big 12 undefeated, you're telling me that they're going to get left out?
It is a possibility, I mean. But, however, there's got to be a lot of crazy stuff that would happen. I think Alabama would have to lose this week and then run the table.
But this is the crazy thing that's getting crazy is, we talked for the whole last year about UCF and running the table and being left out as a G5 participant. Yeah. Can you imagine a P5 participant running the table and being left out of the playoffs? I mean, if there's not a recipe for expansion, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
If Baylor goes undefeated and they're left out, the college football playoff has lost all its integrity because there would be no argument for why you would keep a Power 5 undefeated team out of the playoff.
Exactly. And good thing Notre Dame's not good and undefeated this year.
Oh, yeah.
That would throw the hugest wrench in there, especially. But
we can almost say that every year.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that loss to who they just get Michigan. That loss. If they still only had one loss and had that W against Michigan, they'd be up here somewhere too. I mean, they're number 15 at 6-2. I mean,
yeah, they'd be probably right between Utah and Oklahoma or something around there. Maybe in front of Oregon. Maybe I could see the 7th through the 9th area.
Yeah, I think if they were a one-loss team, they would be somewhere. I'd say somewhere after Georgia because they lost to Georgia, and somewhere ahead of probably Auburn or Florida. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of football to be played. It's just you try to decipher what the playoff committee's concepts are because it doesn't seem like it's a. I think week to week you're like, oh, what's going to create the best matchups? What's going to create the best TV dollars? What's going to create
the most controversy,
the most people to travel to the game? Because remember, Clemson and Alabama played in San Francisco last year, and nobody went to the game. Mm-hmm. 1 for ticket prices and 2 for distance on a Monday night in January.
Yeah.
So, where is the national championship this year? Is it in New Orleans? Does anybody know?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'll look that up.
Crack research staff Token Tony is getting on that.
They rotate from like 3 or 4 major bowls, right?
It might be in Jerry World this year. Anyways,
If this was an NFL show, you'd get me going about calling it Jerry World, but we'll move on.
It's at the Superdome, so it's in New Orleans. So, I mean, you could argue that, they might leave the Pac-12 out because Oregon and Utah won't travel. I mean, that adds another wrinkle because they don't want to fuck up like they did with Alabama and Clemson and no one going to the game. They were giving away tickets to that game last year. I remember because the company that we worked for was actually giving tickets to high rollers.
Yeah.
And flying them out to that game last year.
Yeah. This year it's in Mercedes-Benz Superdome, and then the next. So I mean,
next
obviously
year
LSU,
it's the Hard Rock, Alabama, Clemson. Oh, obviously Ohio State's going to travel. Will Penn State travel? I mean, I wonder if these are playing a role in. Who knows what's going through the CFP's mind. But I wouldn't shock me if now a new wrinkle in determining this playoff is whose fans are going to travel.
Yeah.
Who's going to put up money?
If you look at the one that's going to be in 2022, that's at the Drum.
In Indianapolis. But the playoff games are, correct me if I'm wrong, because I booked rooms just in case UCF, they gave them a chance. They are in, it's the Fiesta Bowl and the Peach Bowl, I think, this year. So Arizona and Atlanta are the site of the playoff games. So there's a lot of wrinkles. I think, it's really hard to decipher what the criteria is because it seems like the criteria changes week to week.
It definitely does. And you might be onto something because think about this. Minnesota's 17, Penn State's 4. Let's say Minnesota wins. Are they going to swap places? Is Minnesota going to get the top 10 and Penn State be outside the top 10? It's almost like they ranked certain teams that if they lose, it protects them from leaving the top 10. I mean, where's Penn State going to go if they lose to Minnesota in the rankings?
Again, there's so many different factors. If everyone's healthy on Penn State and they lose a game by 3 points, they may fall inside the top 10. If they lose a game by 21, they fall to the teens. If they lose a game by 50, they may fall all the way to the 20s. That's the thing.
I don't see them losing by that much, but I think it's going to be.
Nobody saw Ohio State losing to Iowa last year by however many points either. So, you never know. It's on that's why they play the games. And like you said, no one sees Clemson losing, but I got to imagine if Clemson loses, the ACC is out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Even a one-loss ACC team because of how much the pundits have poo-pooed the ACC, and rightfully so. They've done it to themselves. Mm-hmm. I got way more worked up about this than I should have, especially for somebody who doesn't generally like talking about the playoff rankings because they're largely pointless on November 8th, 2019.
Yeah, the semifinal games are Fiesta and Peach.
Fiesta and Peach. That's what I thought, because I know I booked rooms. I booked rooms at 3 places. I booked rooms in where the hell is Phoenix? I couldn't think of the word. Phoenix, Atlanta, Glendale. It's all Phoenix. Yeah. Phoenix, Atlanta, and I booked the Cotton Bowl too, and that was before they lost to Pittsburgh. So after they lost to Pittsburgh, I canceled my rooms in Atlanta and Phoenix because I'm like, a one-loss team. If a no-loss UCF team can't get in the playoff, a one-loss team definitely ain't getting in the playoff.
No, unless they win the rest of the games, maybe by 100 or something.
Even then, I mean, dude, they were winning games by 40 last year and moved up Actually, they moved down 1 week.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And then once they lost that second game to Cincinnati, I canceled my booking.
It's game over, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're scheduled to go to the Military Bowl in Annapolis. I'm kind of interested in that. It's just
that'd be kind of
at that time. I think the bowl's on the 29th, and I just can't get across the country.
Yeah.
Not for the Military Bowl. For a college football playoff game, I'd have gone across the country. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So. All right, so let's switch gears and talk about what we talk about every week for College Token. And as it stands right now, who has your Heisman vote?
I know who you're on.
Who am I on?
Chubba Hubbard.
I like his name. I don't think he's a Heisman, but he's a beast.
He could be a finalist, I
think,
maybe by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard as right now to go against Burrow.
Fair.
Burrow is probably who has my vote right now. I know a lot of people are talking about Tua still, Chase Young.
Chase Young's in a little bit of trouble right now, too.
Hurts even with his loss.
Yeah.
All right, so Beck, who would have your Heisman vote today if you had to submit?
As of today, based on the breaking news, I'm going to have to agree with Token. Joe Burrow right now playing for the number one team in the nation, or number two team. You could argue they're number one. He's second in yards passing. He's third in efficiency. He's third in total offense, and he's second in the nation in touchdowns thrown behind Washington State, who do they even run the ball? So he's got 30 touchdown passes. I had Chase Young. Then it appears he took a loan from a family friend when he wasn't even in college, and somehow that's an infraction. So now he's not playing this weekend. So I'd say Joe Burrow, just because the stats he's putting up, and he's on an undefeated number two team in the nation. I think that's more powerful than maybe somebody that's on a one-loss team.
That's a fair assessment. I think Joe Burrow right now, after, and I say this every week, after he got that shot in the mouth by UCF last year in the Fiesta Bowl, he has been unstoppable. But I think another guy who was in there early, but maybe doesn't get the credit, has reemerged himself. And my vote would still go to Joe Burrow, but I think I'm starting to have love for Justin Herbert.
Okay.
I mean, 2,300 yards, 24 touchdowns, 2 picks. And if it weren't for Bo Nix's miracle, quote-unquote, Hail Mary at the end of that first game of the year, Oregon would be undefeated.
And maybe even in the top 4 team at this point.
Potentially. I know that the bias doesn't usually sway towards the Pac-12. But I think if he gets this team into the top 4 at the end of the season, I think we're looking at invite to New York in that spot. Still Joe Burrow right now for me, but at 8-1 overall, again, 2,300 yards, 2 interceptions only on the year. And I think he's definitely grown, and I think staying in school to get that extra year of seasoning is going to help him in the long run. And McShay agrees with me. He's looking like the consensus number 1 quarterback, whether that's because of him or because of a little bit of Tua's injury history.
Probably a little both.
Combination of it all, maybe. Who knows? But
I mean, Oregon's final 3 games are home against Arizona, on the road against Arizona State, and then home again against Oregon State.
Yeah. So, I mean, he has a chance to probably put up another 12 to 15 touchdowns.
Yeah, the only game where he might struggle a little is probably on the road against Arizona State because their defense is actually pretty decent. So.
Yeah, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Utah is in the Pac-12 South, so we will have a more than likely Utah and Oregon Pac-12 championship, which will give him another opportunity to showcase himself. Yeah, so I think that's
their remaining schedule is hosting UCLA at Arizona and then hosting Colorado.
So yeah, I think we're on a crash course for them as well. So that when Beck, you talk about Utah maybe sliding up there, one of these teams running the table to get themselves in the conversation. I mean, I think that's going to be the game right there.
Yeah, and they play this weekend, right? So they'll have a rematch in the Pac-12 title game. So the Pac-12 better hope that whoever wins this weekend wins out. You can't have those teams splitting. But if a Utah or Oregon, what pains me about Oregon is I want to like them because we have a show on our network that's Oregon fan. But I felt like they coached themselves out of that game against Auburn. They should have won. And they should be undefeated right now. They'd probably be sitting at 6, I would guess. Mm-hmm. But the Pac-12 they're on life support. They need either Utah or Oregon to win this week, win out, and then win the Pac-12 title game big, and then hope that, let's say Penn State's gone, Alabama's lost, or LSU's lost. What do you do then? Do you put a second SEC team in? I mean, we've been talking about this all day, but I can't. I don't envy the committee because then you're going to be sitting there like, okay, do we put Bama in, who we feel is probably better than Oregon, but they're the Pac-12 champs, or Utah? Or do we put the Pac-12 champ in? They've never been shy about screwing over the Pac-12 before, so it could happen again.
No, absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely the case, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, you can only put who's in front of you. You can only play who's in front of you, and that's no disrespect to Oregon or Utah. Utah's loss to USC, I think, is ultimately, even if they run the table, going to keep them out no matter what. And Oregon's loss, obviously, to an SEC opponent who's really theoretically actually 4 spots behind them as of right now, will
make it look better.
Yeah, keep them in the contention to. Their best hope is that, you're right, that one of LSU or Alabama loses and the winner of that game beats Georgia in the SEC title game to eliminate Georgia as a 2-loss, and also hopefully the team in the SEC West that didn't make it will stay out as well. And then obviously you're going to have one of Penn State or Ohio State be out as well. So you're looking at SEC team, Big Ten team, Clemson, and then you're hoping that the playoff committee chooses you over the Big 12.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Have fun with that.
Yeah.
Or a 3-loss SEC team. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Bad joke. Let's move on.
Some crazy shit has happened.
It could happen, right? All right. So
especially if it's Alabama.
Exactly. Let's dive into some football. Let's dive into some gambling talk. Let's start with Let's start with Penn State and Minnesota. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's do it. We have the early games, because now that we're talking to somebody on the East Coast, remember how I fuck up time zones?
Oh, yeah.
This is going to screw with me.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so in honor of you being in Ohio, I'm going to try this out. Let's start with the noon games.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's start with the noon games, the noon Eastern.
Over under 3.5 games for you to fuck that up.
Oh. I'm going to fuck it up on that half a game. Yeah, no, I'll take the under. I'm going to screw this up. So let's start with that 4-17 matchup that Beck informed us is going to be continuing to be in the afternoon and not at night as Penn State wanted to. What was the reason Penn State wanted to make it a primetime game? Just for exposure?
Probably.
Well, I don't know if it was Penn State or the Big Ten or the TV network. Somebody, I casually read the headline and moved on with my life, but there was push to move it to an 8:00 game and make it a primetime game, and it ultimately comes down to Minnesota's decision because they're the home team, and they're like, no, we're not doing that. We're playing at noon. So I think Minnesota's thinking is Penn State's going to have a little bit of travel lag, and we're the home team, and we have to travel about 2 minutes to the stadium, and it's going to be hard. I played college football. It is tougher to play at noon as the away team than it is 8, because at 8, at least you have all day to get ready mentally and physically. Whereas noon, you just got there the night before, checked into your hotel, and then you got like 2 hours in the morning to get up, moving, and get to the stadium. So I think Minnesota's playing a little bit of a head game there.
So I did not play college football. However, I did spend one season in the college baseball ranks, and I actually feel the opposite. I feel it's way easier to get up and play a noon game than it is to sit around all day, take some swings, take a little fielding, and sit around for a 7:00 game. But football is obviously far different than baseball. Oh, shit, I forgot the sports. I would think, Beck, that Minnesota would want to have Penn State, who's in I wouldn't say an unfamiliar environment. Those kids might be. Want to have them sit around all day in the cold. But maybe I guess I'm incorrect about that.
Well, I don't think as the away team you're stuck outside. You'd probably be somewhere warm.
Yeah.
Also fair. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'd start floating in some a breeze into their locker room at that point. So, anyways, let's move on.
Yeah,
we could go on with this dumb shit all day. 7 is the line in favor of the away team that you mentioned. Penn State. Minnesota has not been 9-0 in 115 years. So they're due.
Wow.
They got to be due it.
Just a little bit.
We got a total. I lost it here. Where we got the total? The total is
47.5.
Thank you, Token. PJ Fleck has definitely done some fantastic things, which I know that is one of Tony Johnson's favorite coaches in college football right now. I mean, you got, again, 8-0, 5-0 in the Big Ten for both teams. Sean Clifford's been great. He's 1,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, threw 4 last week against Michigan State, which, I mean, no disrespect, Token, but Sparty on has been Sparty down this year. But, you know, they're going to be combated by a rushing attack that's third in the Big Ten at 200 yards a game, and the time of possession coupled with the weather. I like the home team.
You like the Gophers plus the points, or?
Yeah, I think they might win this outright. However,
I agree, actually.
I believe that they're going to be in a dogfight for sure. I mean, Penn State, they're it doesn't shock me that they're number 4. They're a good team. I mean,
they're a really good defensively team.
They got 2 great running backs led by Noah Cain, and I think James Franklin might be one of the best coaches in college football. And I've heard if they can back up the Brinks truck far enough that he could be a candidate for Tallahassee.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the weather for this game is supposed to be at the high, like around 40. You got probably a good chance of some mixture towards that tail end of the game with maybe a little sleet and snow. Yeah, I think that favors Minnesota in this matchup for sure. And give me them plus the points and even probably a little more on the money line. So,
Beck, what do you think?
Well, what's the saying in horse racing? His mutter was a mutter. Well, that's Penn State can handle the cold. I'm looking at this the opposite way here. I think Penn State covers. Minnesota had some close wins against Fresno, Georgia Southern, San Diego State. Penn State, they're kind of on a downward trend, but they've shown in the first half of the season they can put up major points, and I think they have the better defense here. I know they're on a kind of a downward trend. They beat Iowa 17-12, Michigan 28-21. Michigan's suddenly looking like they're coming along.
Yeah,
and I think that's a sign. Penn State put 28 up on Michigan, who's coming along defensively. I just think it's going to come down to, I think Penn State has the better defense, which is going to be the difference maker, especially in the cold. I see Penn State winning this 30-20.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you have. I think the Golden Gophers offense, yes, although it has sputtered at times, is still averaging the exact same number of points as Penn State.
They are.
However, Becky is right. Penn State's defense has been ridiculously good, 9.6 points a game.
Yeah.
I think the question really is just going to be, can Morgan, what's his name, Tanner Morgan or Tyler Morgan, whatever his name is, the quarterback for Minnesota, get the ball out to his receivers, Bateman and Tyler Johnson, who lead both are first and second in the Big Ten in receiving yards and touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, even if I think Penn State targets Bateman, they go to Johnson for sure. So,
no, that would be the plan, right? That'd be a good plan.
Yeah, I mean, there's too much weapons on there if they are able to open up the running game with Smith.
What'd you say the total was?
47.5.
Yeah, I kind of dig the under in this game. I think
especially with the weather maybe being a low factor.
Yeah, I think it will be a close game. Both defenses play well. I mean, Minnesota's no slouch. Yes, they've definitely had close games against teams that they probably should have blown out. But I mean, they're still only giving up 20 points a game in this spot. So we're already opposite sides of one game.
Yeah. I think 27 or 20 to 17 Minnesota with the victory.
Yeah, I'm thinking somewhere around 21-17 myself. So it'll be an interesting matchup. Definitely one I'm interested in watching because on Saturdays when we record the NFL podcast, we'll have that game on.
Yeah.
So at least, if it's going to be boring Big Ten football, it's going to be ranked boring Big Ten football.
Or boring SEC football against Citadel that surprisingly is good first half and then just shits the bed.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess. All right, so let's move on to that number one team. And I didn't mention this when we were talking about, and I don't want to go off on another tangent. I believe Ohio State is the number one team in the nation.
Ooh.
Well, you know how I feel.
Yeah, we'll skip your comments.
in my opinion, I could see number 2, but I could have also seen number 3 just because the matchup with LSU and Alabama this week. I'm actually surprised that the playoff committee didn't put them as number 3 just so they would have a 1 versus 2 matchup.
I can see what you're doing, but I mean, I can see what your thought process.
In theory, they should be like number 2.
My only thought is that maybe they don't believe Ohio State's number 1, and the SEC kind of sells itself no matter, if you put them 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, 2 versus 4, 1 versus 3. The SEC, that SEC game will sell itself. But having a Big Ten team number 1, and especially since they have been shut out of the playoff for the last 2 years, I don't know. I mean, again, we could sit there and try to get into the heads of these. I don't even know who's on the committee. It seems to change year to year. One year, like Condoleezza Rice was on the committee. So
Yeah, that made sense.
Yeah, exactly. But we do have Ohio State as the nation's number one team in the first college football playoff rankings, and they are facing Maryland. And they are, la-ti-da, a 44-point favorite, actually all the way down to 41.5 on MGM. So if you're looking to unleash the rest of your MGM account token,
I have none.
41.5. You have nothing left?
No, I haven't. I've
that's
had
right.
nothing
You
left.
only have that future bet on Houston, right?
Yeah.
So me,
Houston and New England.
so me with $47 should just sit tight, right?
Well, I mean, you probably got to compete with Spike maybe still. Unless,
He said remember that text he sent? He unleashed his account on some line movement? We never heard about that.
Oh, that's true.
But his whole weekend was F you, F this, F
Yeah.
your mom, and hope you choke on a hard one. So I'm thinking his MGM account might be zero.
Yeah.
We haven't been really doing our due diligence as far as checking each other's accounts.
No,
I'm gonna find.
I have none except for my future stake.
I'm gonna find like a Hawks Raptors basketball bet on Tony Johnson's account that voids his whole bet.
I almost bet golf one weekend. I'm like, oh wait, crap.
I have almost made the mistake too. I put a 3-team parlay in, and on that parlay I had like a playoff baseball game.
Oh.
And I almost hit send, and I'm like, ooh. And so
Shit.
I cleared it. And so, yeah, I've almost done that exact same thing, too. So fair enough. So back to Ohio State. Let's call it 43 points right now. Do you have a total there, Token? All right, fine. I got it. 65.5.
Yeah, that's what I see.
Yeah, so obviously it's a correlated line at that point. Maryland, what do you say about this team, dude? 2-3 weeks in after they beat Syracuse, we were ready to crown them the upstart young darlings of the Big Ten, and now they are 3-6.
Yeah, the wheels came off and some.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, with the schedule here, they could be 3-9 at the end of the year. I believe they have Ohio State. I believe they have Penn State left, and I believe they have Michigan, but I can't remember to be exact.
I think they just lost to Michigan, didn't they?
Oh yeah, you're right. They did. They just got their doors
So
blown.
they play. What was it? So at Ohio State, hosting Nebraska, and then at Michigan State.
Well, they could. They probably win one of those.
Yeah, maybe.
Wait, Michigan State? No, I think they have. What am I looking at here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Ohio State's schedule. I'm looking at the wrong damn schedule. Come on, Aaron, get it together.
Yeah,
Anyways, the point being,
Where's the Nebraska game with Maryland?
in Maryland.
Oh, that could be a winnable one.
That's the one I was thinking that most likely could be the win. I could see them upsetting maybe Michigan State on the road just because they don't care, but it depends on Michigan State's record at the time. Maybe if they're trying to get a better bowl game or something, if that. So,
but
They better get a better coach.
yeah, that's for sure.
that's also fair. But that's not the team we're talking about in this one. I mean, with these big spreads, the question really is, we know Ohio State's going to win. I mean, I don't want to ever use the L word, but we're pretty much confident in the fact that Ohio State will win this game.
Yeah,
The question is, how complacent do they get? And is that too complacent to cover a 43-point spread?
yeah, that's in my opinion a shit ton of points. Maryland's looking pretty damn bad, but I would take Maryland plus the points in this one and probably the over.
Well, the last time they played each other, it was 52-51.
Yeah, I don't see it being that close, but
So you don't see it being that close, but that they could do that again. Do you think that this team's better? This Ohio State team's better than the last one with Dwayne Haskins? Who do you think's better quarterback, Justin Fields or Dwayne Haskins in college?
in college, I would say Justin Fields.
That's,
But it's pretty damn close.
I agree because Haskins wasn't much of a runner.
no, but also 8 games in, I believe he also had 35 touchdowns.
Well, better arm, but he couldn't run.
Fair.
So it's what do you value? The college game kind of plays into the hand of a quarterback that can run.
Yeah.
They all throw.
Well, they don't all throw.
Well,
Some of them can only run.
Army.
You can go to Navy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's also fair. I remember Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Eric Crouch. I think he threw like 112 passes that whole year.
It was something.
He was an option quarterback.
Stuff, yeah.
But Ohio State has won all 5 meetings since Maryland joined the Big Ten 5 years ago. Obviously, they play every year by an average of 31 points, including that 1-point victory last year. So yeah, that number is going to be hard to dance around. I think that's a layoff. I want to say Maryland will be capable of putting up some points on this Ohio State team, but I don't know. This is a stay away game all around for me because I don't trust Ohio State to be motivated enough. They're going to win the game, which all they have to do is win games. I think to stay in the playoff, just winning games is good enough for them.
Yeah. I mean, even if they only have a 1-point victory again this week, I mean, they're not going to drop. They might lose credibility, but they're not going to drop from one, I don't think.
Now I don't
actually,
necessarily agree with that. I think the winner, if
yeah.
they win this game by 1 point, the winner of the LSU-Alabama game is number 1.
Yeah, that's true. I eat my own words with that. But,
yeah, that's okay. We'll forgive you. But
if they only win this game by 1, they might drop out of the top 4. That would be embarrassing. That's not going to happen.
I don't agree with that, but yeah, there might be some. They will. Well, that's a tough one. I think only because LSU and Alabama are playing each other this week, they have to win the game by 3 touchdowns. And maybe it doesn't even matter if they win the game by 100 because of the fact that LSU is playing Alabama.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
they want to add more controversy.
I don't know if that'd be a controversy. I think it's easy for anyone to say, even Ohio State fan, that LSU beating Alabama is more deserved of Ohio State beating Maryland, even if it's by 50.
Yeah.
So yeah. I will retract my statement and say that they may, they may have some motivation. I'm still not betting this game, but because the number is just ridiculous. But who has less motivation, Ohio State or Maryland at this point?
Maryland has a little less.
I think even without Chase Young back,
but they're still fighting for bowl potential.
No, they would have to win out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good luck with that.
Is there a money line?
Beck, even with Chase Young out, you still have the rest of these guys combining to be the nation's number 2 defense in yards allowed. I mean, where do you see this game kind of going?
Here's what I see happening. So far, I was a Jim Tressel guy, not so much Urban Meyer. And what I like about Ryan Day is he reminds me of Jim Tressel. And I don't think we're going to have those weeks where we have a giant brain fart like we did under Urban Meyer. So I don't think we're going to slip up here. But what I think is going to happen is because Chase Young is out, that might be an oh shit moment for the team to where we might get up big, and we're going to treat Maryland and Rutgers like a tune-up game for Penn State. We might call off the dogs in the second half, so I don't think we're going to put 70 on them, but I do think we're going to score just in droves in the first half. And it's interesting. You said the line moved down to 41.5. I think I might be on the same wavelength as that Casino or whoever set that line, because my final score, I got 52-10.
Well, you would be right. But
I think it's 52-10 because by about mid-third quarter, I can see Ryan Day putting backups in, especially on defense, because we don't know if Chase Young's coming back. We can take our studs out at that point. Yeah, exactly.
So before we move on to the next game, let me ask both of you this. Beck, I'll start with you. We have a number 1 team. We have an 8-0 Penn State, 5-0 in the Big Ten, averaging 49 points a game, only giving up 8 points a game. Yet we don't really have any one player really being mentioned like heavily in the Heisman talk. I mean, you looked at the 3 of us. None of us even had. I said, Burrow and Herbert. You said Burrow. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Beck said Burrow too.
Yeah.
We didn't really mention any single Justin Fields, Chase Young, Dobbins, any of them.
Yeah.
Well, I had Chase Young at 1, and so we might not even see him the rest of the season. He might pull a Bosa. He might be reinstated for Penn State and say, you know what, I don't want to put up with this NCAA crap. I'm a top 3 pick. I'm not coming back like Bosa did to us. The sexy pick's always quarterback. I mean, deep down in my heart, I like running backs, and I think J.K. Dobbins, what he's accomplished, I think the only other person that's done what he's done at Ohio State is Archie Griffin. But the quarterbacks are always going to get the limelight, especially when it comes to the Heisman race. Mm-hmm. But that's what the Big Ten's kind of built from. Yeah, you have your good quarterbacks here and there, but the Big Ten smash mouth, run the ball, play solid defense. So, you're not always going to have a guy mentioned in the Heisman race.
And that's not an unfair thing to say, because actually I was thinking about Dobbins because in the beginning of the year we actually talked about Jonathan Taylor turnover. Yes. So, I mean, if you're talking about a running back in the Big Ten, and you mentioned Archie Griffin, but don't forget about Eddie George, the year he won the Heisman Trophy. Actually, I was reading a stat here that J.K. Dobbins is actually through 8 games ahead of the pace that Eddie George was on when he won the Heisman Trophy token.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
And that he's not even being really mentioned in anything.
Yeah, and like you said, because Chase Young may have been taking up some, the fact that they are blowing everyone out, and the fact that Justin Fields is on this team. Here's a funny stat I'm reading actually right now. You ready for this, Token?
Yeah.
So, J.K. Dobbins is 4th on Ohio State's career rushing list.
Yes.
He needs 203 yards to pass Eddie George for 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Last year against Maryland, he ran for a career high, wait for it, 203 yards.
I was going to say it's something around there, yeah.
So
it's between 200 and 220.
So here's the bet I have with you for $1 whole.
Yeah.
After the game against Maryland, is J.K. Dobbins 3rd or 4th on the all-time Ohio State rushing list?
I'll say 3rd. I think he runs for over 210 probably.
All right, J.K., 201. I want that dollar.
All right.
Still 201 and 4 touchdowns. You can have it. All right, so we'll move on from Maryland and Ohio State, moving into some of the other games in the, I'm about to screw it up, in the 12 o'clock Eastern slate. See, I almost did it. Baylor, TCU. Baylor is a 2.5-point favorite. Over-under is 48 at this point. This line started the season as a TCU favorite. Obviously, we know 2 teams going in different directions. Baylor 8-0 and 3-0 on the road, and we have TCU who is 4-4 this year. And like I said, obviously the spread has been correlated with that. Token, what do you think about this spot? Matt Rule has turned over a Baylor team that, when Art Briles left, was in complete disarray on and off the field.
Yeah, it seems like he cleaned up this locker room talent and behavior and all that, and just is grabbing the bull by the horns and kind of controlling it in a really impressive fashion, too.
Yeah, I wish he'd take Kendall Briles back away from Florida State as well, but that's probably not going to happen. There's not going to be anyone named Briles ever stepping foot in Waco, Texas anymore.
No, probably
not. Baylor's averaging 36 points a game, only surrendering 18, which, I mean, for years we talked about the Big 12, but we didn't talk about defense ever in that conversation.
No, it would be like they get 40 to 50 points a game and then allow a 35-plus.
Yeah, however, I was a little disappointed in the game they just had against West Virginia, only winning 17-14 against a West Virginia team who is not very good. TCU, a lot of uncertainty at quarterback. Dugan was knocked out of the 4th quarter last week, and his backup, Mike Collins, was also injured on the last play of the game. There has not been, as of this podcast, as of the recording of this podcast, there has not been a starter named for TCU. I'm not sure that'll matter too much to Baylor, Beck, but it does leave Matt Rule and company always having to, prepare extra for 2 different quarterbacks.
Yeah, you got similar.
That was not addressed to you, sir.
No.
Yeah, it is always difficult to prepare when you don't know who is playing quarterback. But I think in this case, they kind of know who TCU is. I think the only threat here to Baylor is if this turns into a shootout. But like you said, Baylor's better at defense. And I think we need to consider Baylor's coach as coach of the year, even if they only have 1 loss. I don't think they have to run the table. What he's done there is amazing. And I was questioning 2-3 weeks ago, are they legit? Yeah, the West Virginia game kind of gives you a little bit of a red flag, but a lot of teams have those games during the year. I see them bouncing back. I didn't have this game in my notes, but I've been starting to pay attention to Baylor the last 2 weeks, and I think they got more firepower than TCU can give them.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that this isn't an overlook game, especially TCU can come up and dance with you. I mean, they were able to beat Texas which is one of the 3 remaining teams after TCU that Baylor has on their schedule. They don't have an easy schedule to finish out the year. Obviously, they have Oklahoma, who needs to beat Baylor to obviously continue their playoff conversation. They have Texas, who lost to TCU. And they have Kansas, who, albeit I believe they're 3-6 or 4-5,
something like that.
I mean, they're not a pushover as they once were.
Yeah.
So this could. I hope this isn't a lookover game for
Baylor.
For Baylor, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you're a Oklahoma fan, you're rooting for Baylor in this spot because that matchup against them will make this.
Yeah, I was about
better.
to say.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to because if you're going to beat Baylor, you want to beat an undefeated Baylor, rather than a one-loss Baylor who lost to a team.
That was ice melting.
One loss. I was wondering what that was. Yeah. I mean, noises coming from that general direction from you could be anything. So
yeah, that's true.
Well, hopefully you don't hear my wail of a dog snoring on the couch right now. If you do, I apologize.
No, yeah,
okay.
But I will like to hear your wail of a pick in this one if you got one.
I'm going to go with Baylor, and I think it's going to not be that close. I'm saying 45-24.
Interesting. Yeah, I like Baylor as well in this spot. I mean, I'm surprised it's only 2.5. If I had a set a line, it would have been closer to about 4.5. But I think Baylor wins this game right around the 27-21 kind of range.
Yeah, I was actually looking at that total and watching it come down, and I think that might be a product of Baylor only being able to score 17 points last week, but still maintaining good defensive play. I think Baylor gets back to their offensive juggernaut ways. I actually see this game closer to the line. I think we could have a 3 to 5 point game. That being said, I'm with you. I think it's like somewhere around 31-27. Baylor wins. The over goes. All right. Let's move into a couple more of the midnight. See, I already fucked it up. Noon Eastern games. There's no games on at midnight, except for, you're right, Hawaii games.
Sometimes, yeah.
Vandy and Florida. Florida's SEC East hopes are hanging by a thread, and obviously a loss to Vanderbilt would cut the string that is that small thread. The line currently, correct me if I'm wrong here, what I have lost the line. Where the hell is it?
Yeah,
there it is. 27 points, which is actually a larger line than the Georgia-Vanderbilt game at the beginning of the year, which Georgia did not cover. 49 is the total, which I can't imagine this game getting that high with Florida's defense and really a kind of a lackluster offense that Florida's had the last few weeks. Take your time.
Yeah. Who's first?
Token. Yeah. Token. I love listening to Token.
This one actually, I think 27 is almost too many points. I think they're overcompensating for this. And I do like the under as well. I think the under is going to be the stronger play out of the two for me, though. I see like a 30-7 kind of game.
Fair enough. Beck, what do you think?
I like that the total's 49 because I have a total of 51, so I'm kind of right in line there. Vanderbilt's coming off a 17-point loss to South Carolina. Florida's dropped 2 of 3. I think as a better you might see this as a trap game, seeing that they lost 2 of 3 and they are favored by 27. But when you factor in the point that the coach's wife is making out with players and they're pretty pissed off about the 2 losses, I think they're going to come out with their hair on fire. I got the Gators winning 41-10 to cover and take the over.
Yeah, have you seen this story, Token?
No, I haven't.
I saw it on Barstool. Like, apparently Megan Mullen, who is Dan Mullen's wife, embraces the players. I don't want to use any of the wrong word. Embraces the players and kisses them. Some on the mouth, some on the cheek, and I don't want to get into any kind of deep, weird conversations.
Hey, what happens in the South stays in the South.
It does seem like she has a little bit more favor for the African American players.
Yeah.
I feel like, and stay with me here, I've seen many movies that start this way.
Exactly.
There's a website for that.
There's a website for everything, you know.
Yeah, but the thing is and not to get off too far on a tangent, they were how is this never an issue in today's what's the word? Politically correct world? How has this never been an issue? Is it because she's a female? Because
Yes,
if the softball
yeah.
coach's husband for Florida was kissing the players before the game,
Yeah, then
there's no way that doesn't blow up
Yeah.
on the nightly news.
yeah, it's probably because they don't want to poke the hornet's nest.
But also in the social media world, if she was doing it at Mississippi State, how is this just now coming out?
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe nobody ever. It's.
maybe nobody spoke up.
I find it. If it was just like a hug and a kiss on the cheek, good luck. But a kiss on the lips.
Yeah,
And some of the guys had their arm around her waist when she was kissing him. I mean, it looked. When I saw the headline, I'm like, I'm going to go into this without preconceived notions, and just maybe she's just a Southern mom that's. But when I saw the video, I'm like, wait a minute, she's definitely at least interested in some of these guys.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Like you said, when I clicked it, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be clickbait. She just hugs him and kisses him on the cheek, but no, she embraces him almost like the ending of a movie. It is weird. I'm curious.
A happy ending.
Yeah, in more ways than one. I'm curious to see what the decision on that is. I mean, again, I think it's going to probably be a big nothing burger because she's a female, and I'm not trying to jump into some social justice warrior cause here, but it threw me off because, like I said, usually you click on some Barstool links and they're mostly nothing burgers, but this one was not. All right, back to the game. 27. I don't know. I just don't know if the Gators are that good to cover 4 touchdowns. They're not a bad team. Their defense is great. The only reason they'll cover it, I think they're going to need some defense and special teams. If not scores, they're going to need to turn the field quickly on some possession. They're going to need short
Make the field short. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Trask has been okay. 16-48 with 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And no, this is not Georgia. Or no, this team Vanderbilt is not Georgia, but they only got 21 yards on 19 carries last week in the Cocktail Bowl. The defense is great. I wouldn't necessarily touch these points because one way or another, I mean, Florida could win this game 42-0. I'm on the under in this game. I think one way or another, whether Florida blows them out, they're not getting there. And if the Vanderbilt Commodores have a pulse, this game will stay closer. I don't see 49 points being scored in this spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost see like the Florida defense maybe overlooking Vaughn and giving up some crucial first downs.
Yeah, that guy's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, he's averaging
what's his name?
over
Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah, he's averaging over 5 yards per carry, even with the struggle last week and all that.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. So, yeah, I'm going to take the under in that spot, and so naturally, fire the over. It'll be 51 to
19,
47 in 6 overtimes. All right.
Probably.
Last game I have on the docket before we talk about the any games you got in the action is ECU and SMU, and I know that's a G5 game, but I think SMU is in a really weird spot right now, and I think this feels like a trap game in more ways than one for bettors because obviously we see SMU still ranked number 25, came off of a tough loss to Memphis last week. Still put up, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, 48 points last week. And ECU actually almost handed UCF back an avenue to get to the AAC East AAC title game and through the East Division. They unfortunately couldn't hold on. Cincinnati came back.
with a game-winning field goal as time ran out.
Correct. So that being said, many people may see that and say SMU let down ECU maybe better than their 3-6 record. But I think SMU, if they want to obviously remain in contention for the American, have to win games, and I think they're going to blow the doors off of this 21-point spread.
Oh, I'm on the other side.
Good. Fuck off.
Yeah. No, I like East Carolina in this matchup. 21's too many points. I do think SMU wins.
SML, you're just making up colleges now.
Yeah, Southern Methodist.
Southern New Hampshire University. Do they have a team?
Southern Methodist Louisiana University or something like that.
Do you remember 21 years ago when Bobby Boucher showed up at a halftime of the Bourbon Bowl and the Mud Dogs? The Mud Dogs.
Or Mud Dogs. Yeah.
Mud Dogs came back and won the Bourbon Bowl.
Yeah. I was actually just watching that though.
That movie came out 20 years ago this week.
Okay.
Yeah, ESPN decided to remind me of that.
Okay. Yeah, the ESPN analyst that was talking about it was Dan Patrick actually back then.
That is true. He was in the movie.
Yeah. No, I think SMU wins this game, but however, not enough to cover the spread. SMU wins this game right around like 34-24, something around there.
Fuck that. 51-10 Mustangs. Beck, what do you got?
Well, and this is all honesty. I set these scores for my games before I saw the lines, and then I saw the line of this. I just laughed because I'm right on it. East Carolina's kept games close with like Cincinnati 46-43, Central Florida 41-28, and we learned last week that SMU has no defense. So they do have a great offense, though. But I think the fact that their defense is so weak, that's going to give East Carolina time to have the ball. It's going to keep it away from SMU, and I think it's going to make that 21.5 point spread be tough to reach. I have a 21-point game. I have SMU winning 49-28, only because I don't think they're going to get a whole ton of stops against East Carolina.
I will put a caveat into one of those. USF took the foot off the gas pedal. They were up 41-10 at halftime in that game, and they stopped playing football. So actually, that game is closer than the score, or excuse me, that game is not as close as the score indicates. And then getting your doors blown in by USF at home, 45-20. I have no faith in the ECU team. So
I got you on that one, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't mean to poo-poo yours and Token's thought process here, but I mean, who knows? I could be wrong in this spot. But last time these two teams were playing against each other was in 2016. So I don't think any of these guys were really on the field, and nor I think both regimes were. These were two different regimes as well. So you throw that last meeting out the window. SMU winning 55-31, but I think we see a larger spread than that. I'm telling you, 51-10. I think maybe 17, but. SMU's offense is just, I think they're fantastic.
Let me ask you this. Do you think, who do you think has the better defense, Cincinnati or SMU?
I think Cincinnati does.
Because they dropped 43 on them last week. That's why I thought to myself, this might be right around the point spread. But, I mean, I could be wrong, but it just last week threw me off. Like, how did you drop 43 on Cincinnati?
Yeah, I feel like last week's an outlier. I mean, 42-10 to Navy. They lost to Temple. That game was semi-close. Again, the UCF game, just because I watched it, that game, the score does not indicate the beatdown they took. There are 2 touchdowns they got in the second half were against second and third string guys. You're right, Cincinnati is a complete weird outlier. The only thing that really is making my point is that it was at home. So I can see exactly where both of you are on that point. I'm hoping for my sake, because I've already laid a wager on this. Unfortunately, it was at 23 and not 21, but I've already laid a wager on this at 23. I'm hoping for my sake that the outlier was that they got up for a Super Bowl against Cincinnati. Maybe they called up the guys in Orlando and said, hey, you guys still want a shot to play for the AAC title? We'll give it our best effort, and they almost did. They almost beat them. Because, I mean, UCF needs Cincinnati to lose 2 games in the final, well, now 2 weeks, and it's going to be tough to do. So maybe ECU, because ECU and UCF go way back, so maybe they were trying to do them a solid.
That could be.
I got you, bud.
I highly doubt it. I just made all that shit up as I went.
No, it's
sounded legit, though, right?
It's a good crazy one.
Yeah, it did.
All right, yeah.
It's so crazy it might work.
All right, the noon Eastern slate will also include 12:30, any 12:30 games in that spot. Any other action?
No, not for me.
The Iowa-Wisconsin game is interesting to me, not because it has any kind of playoff implications, but that could set football back 50 years. if you look at some of their scores.
We're getting to that one. That one has not come up in the broadcast yet.
Oh, you just want noon games.
Yeah. It's okay. We'll forgive you.
Well, I thought you were closing shop. We've been over an hour.
I know. Oh, shit, we have.
Yeah.
We just got to the morning games.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
Let's move into those afternoon games, and we'll start with that Iowa-Wisconsin, and I will carte blanche it by just saying Wisconsin is a 9-point favorite. The over-under is 38, so I will let you have at it.
You're going to let me go first. All right. Well, I call these two teams two frauds, and I've been saying that about Iowa since week 2. I mean, week 2, was it week 1 or 2? They were up 10-7 at half against Miami of Ohio, and I got into an argument with some of their fans. I'm like, dude, you guys should be killing these guys if you're legit. And then Wisconsin, I don't know what happened to them.
They ran into better coaching.
Could be.
Yeah, I mean, the Buckeyes just embarrassed them. They were the number 1 defense in the nation before they played the Buckeyes. I like this type of game because it's a nice break from high-scoring, high-flying games. But like I said, it's going to set football back. I'm looking at my notes here. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, Iowa, I don't know how Iowa's even ranked because they lost 10-3 to Michigan, 17-12 to Penn State. They have no offense. But Wisconsin, is Taylor – has he just got the fumble rooskies, or is he out hurt?
I haven't heard anything regarding Jonathan Taylor.
All right, I thought there was something wrong with him, but I got Wisconsin winning 17-14. I thought 8.5 was a bit high because both teams play basically defense and run the ball. I don't know how anybody's going to get a 10-point lead in this game.
Yeah, it's a close one for me. This one's a stay away, but if I had to project the final score on this one, I would say 20-10. I think Wisconsin has like a touchdown lead towards the end and then kicks a field goal, make it 2-score game, and Iowa's held.
I actually feel like that's the trap. I want to take the over in this spot. And not that I'm saying this is going to be a high-flying circus game, but I literally see something along the lines of 23-20, which is way good. I mean, you're right. Anything in the 17-14 range is totally possible, especially with these teams. I mean, you have the teams giving up a total combined of 21.5 points a game. So it's going to be tough to get offense. Wisconsin is 6 of the last 7. They were the winner in this game. The one that scares me really, and I've been high on him since the start of the season. He just can't seem to turn a corner. Jack Cohn. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's just because quarterbacks have never really materialized. I mean, can you name any good quarterbacks that have come out of Wisconsin?
No, absolutely not.
Nothing really comes to mind.
No.
And Alex Hornibrook transferred to Florida State, and I was actually excited to watch him play this week, and he looked awful. So,
where did I hate that I don't know this. Where did Joe Flacco play?
Delaware.
Didn't he transfer?
I don't know. He may have. Crack research over there.
I'm trying to pull it up. Why did I think he...
Chokin's our crack research guy. Let's see what he comes up with. But I don't see...
Oh, he transferred from Pitt. My bad. It's basically a Big Ten team.
Gotcha. Yeah, fair enough. But he was 10 of 17 for 108 and a touchdown against Ohio State, which... I understand, I'm probably putting too much pressure on him because Ohio State's defense is phenomenal, but it just seems like this year he has not really been able to turn a corner, and especially a team like Iowa, who I would imagine is going to throw 7-8 in the box to stop Jonathan Taylor. It's going to be tough. I know all of that really doesn't help my overbid. I still think there'll be some scoring in this game.
Yeah, this one's a layoff, but I still think the 20-10 final.
Fair enough. All right, let's move to Kansas State versus Texas in a game that I think if you looked at this in the beginning of the year, you would have thought that, well, I guess 6-2 and 5-3, but you would have assumed Texas would have been the higher ranked team or the ranked team in this spot. Kansas State's obviously, while they were ranked earlier, they're obviously the only ranked because of their victory against Oklahoma this year. They haven't, in my opinion, they haven't looked great.
But they look decent enough to get 6 wins and perform moderately.
I don't know. I think basically they go as Skylar Thompson goes. If he's you want to talk about a running quarterback? We talked about all quarterbacks throw. He doesn't do much.
Yeah.
That being said, the line is Texas by a touchdown with a total of 57.5 token.
Yeah, in this matchup, I like the under surprisingly, as well as Texas. I think it'll be kind of a little grind. Texas wins this game 30-20.
Beck, what do you think?
What's the over/under? Did you say
57.5, down from 59 as it opened.
Holy cow! All right. Well, I don't know what happened to Texas personally. For a couple weeks there, LSU was hanging their hat on the fact that they beat them. It doesn't look that good now. I mean, they barely beat Kansas, and that was sandwiched in between losses to TCU and Oklahoma. And here Kansas State is number 16 in the nation. I was trying to hurry up and find their quarterback stats, but I'm not the stat guy. Is it me, or when Big 12 teams jump up in the standings, they usually lose? Maybe it's just my bad memory.
That's a decent assessment. I mean, Iowa State's done it this year. Obviously, we've seen Oklahoma go down. Texas, one the same. Kansas State could follow suit.
Something's happened to Texas. I have no confidence in them. I have Kansas State winning 24-20.
Yeah, I think I'm right around that same philosophy in that spot. I think the score might be a little bit higher, although if Texas's defense can stop Skylar Thompson, I'm not sure Kansas State has anything else to do or anything else to combat Texas with. I think it's somewhere. I think Token's right on the head. I think Texas is 31-21, 30-24, something along those lines. And you're right, Texas. Although I don't know how good of a win this is for them. I mean, Kansas State, it's weird. The Big 12's weird. I mean, Oklahoma seemed so unstoppable for so long, and then you get a guy who's a dual threat quarterback, mostly single threat by rushing, and they can't stop him. But I mean, they were able to stop De'Aaron King in Houston in the beginning of the year. It's just Big 12 football's weird, dude.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't get it. Actually, I'm looking at Skylar Thompson's stats. There's 3 games this year where he didn't throw more than 20 passes, and then there's like 4 more that he only had like 22, 23 attempts. So good call on that. They don't throw very much.
Fair enough. All right, we'll talk Wake Forest, Virginia Tech here real quick, and Wake is 7-1. That loss they have this year is ugly, and I think ultimately, even if they beat Clemson, that loss to Louisville might keep them out of the playoff. That being said, they're a 2-point favorite on the road against Virginia Tech, who gave Notre Dame last week everything it could handle. Virginia Tech's always tough at home. They're 4-1 at home this year. The total seems high to me, but it's not for the lack of Wake being able to score. It might be for the lack of Virginia Tech in this spot. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, they're 28 points a game, which in the NFL is great, and in college maybe not so much. But Wake Forest can put up 40. This one's a tough one for me. I'm on full layoff mode, but I just wanted to touch on it real quick. Again, Tony Johnson and I are on the same page. I really like Jamie Newman for Wake Forest token.
Yeah, I agree, and that is why I'm on Wake on this game. I think 2 is definitely not enough of a favorite for Wake in the spot. And I think they win this game pretty handily, like 35-21, something around there.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia Tech, I guess, has dominated this series. They're 4-1 against Wake Forest, but the last time these two teams faced each other, Wake Forest was able to win a 6-3 double overtime affair in Winston-Salem.
When was that?
2014.
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
It was
6-3 double overtime.
There wasn't even 500 yards of total offense.
That's fantastic.
Well, we're kind of on different wavelengths here because I know Wake can score points like a video game, but they also have a Swiss cheese defense. And Virginia Tech's starting to come along. They're starting to look a lot better than they did the first half of the season. I think the magic number's 40. I think if Virginia Tech can keep them under 40, they're going to win the game. Because, again, I don't think Wake Forest can stop anybody with that defense. And I gave Virginia Tech kind of the benefit of the doubt because it's a home field advantage, and I think it's kind of a tough place to play. I got them beating Wake 38-35, shaking things up in the ACC.
Token, it is a tough place to play. However, Virginia Tech this year 1-4 against the spread at home.
Yeah, and
what's the spread in this one?
Wake is a 2-point favorite.
Only 2, okay.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that. I mean, Virginia Tech has been a Jekyll and Hyde team. If they can stick around, they definitely have a very legitimate chance of winning this football game.
Yeah, and I mean, like Beck was saying, Wake's defense is kind of like Swiss cheese. If they can hold it together and keep Virginia Tech moderate, I think they'll win by 2 scores easily. But
yeah, for sure. All right, the last game I have on the afternoon slate here is LSU and Bama.
Who?
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't even know these two teams still had football programs.
Is this FCS?
It is.
Have they even played anybody?
I think the winner of this game goes on to play Wisconsin Whitewater in the final.
Are we talking hockey now?
No, Wisconsin Whitewater, they're a Division III team. Them and Mount Union, they felt like they met up every year for like 20 years in the. I want to say Division III.
They did.
Or what
it's
about
Division III. I played at Mount Union. It was about 15 years in a row they played in the title game.
Oh, how many title games were you in? Or
my freshman year was the first year Mount Union ever made the playoffs, so I didn't get to play with Wisconsin Whitewater. I'm an old fart.
Oh, okay. Fair. So you didn't play with? Didn't Pierre Garcon play for Mount Union?
That was a few years after I was gone. I played with Jim Ballard, who went to the NFL briefly and then won a title in NFL Europe. You remember that league?
Yeah.
I do remember NFL Europe. Yeah, he was a quarterback, right?
And then he played. He played in the Arena Football League for a while too. But I was the backup to him. I was a quarterback.
Fair enough.
Interesting.
That's still cool. I don't care what you say.
Hell yeah.
So, not to take away from Mount Union Purple Raider football. Let's get back to the LSU at Alabama showdown, the quote-unquote game of the century, except for the fact that Ohio State isn't in it, because it can't be the game of the century, because they're the number 1 team.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess this is the battle for the number 1 spot in Tuesday's rankings.
Yeah. Most likely.
You had talked about this in the beginning of the show, Togan, and let me give you the details here. Alabama is a 6-point favorite. The over-under is currently 62.5. You had brought this up regarding Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
If he does not play this game, then Alabama will not be punished as much as LSU will be if they do not win this game.
True.
Even, like I'm saying, if Tua plays and beats LSU, they will be punished more than if LSU beats Alabama.
Without Tua.
But that makes sense, right?
Yeah. In my opinion, yeah. I mean, Alabama, in my opinion, if they're smart, they don't have Tua play. They keep him healthy, and they keep this game close. And even if they lose to LSU, they're still going to be in the talks for the college football playoff.
See, I got to disagree with you there. Although precedence has been set, I got to imagine that the committee doesn't want to keep doing that with Alabama. I think they got to say, dude, you got to win your conference. Now, no disrespect, they do have the toughest division in arguably the toughest conference in America. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you're and I don't know if they care, but you're destroying the validity of this committee if you keep putting a team in who can't even make their own conference title game.
The integrity of the committee.
Thank you. Validity, integrity, potato, tomato. The integrity's gone. Now the validity.
Part chart.
I like validity committee because it kind of rhymes.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let's not get hung up on that. I think Tua's got to play.
I mean, I think so as well. But, however, at this point, I like LSU plus the points, and I think their defense is able to contain Alabama's offense, even if Tua plays. And
well, yeah. I mean, Mac Jones, great. 18 of 22, 235, and 2 touchdowns against Arkansas. This is a different animal. I'm already locked in on this from a teaser standpoint. Actually, I had a two-team 7-point 2-week teaser. You ever had one of those before?
No.
I had a game on each week because I didn't pay attention to the fact that this game was actually being played this weekend. So last weekend when I made the bet, I now have to wait another week. I took Florida plus 14 last week, and I took LSU plus 14 this week as well.
Okay.
So
7 originally.
I'm with you as far as LSU plus the points. However, my points are 14. I think if Tua plays this game, I think Alabama wins by a touchdown. Exactly.
Yeah, I could see that, but I think if Tua does start and they get off to an early lead, they might pull him a little early to try and keep him healthy.
Well, I don't think you would rule out the possibility of, yes, if there's a 3-touchdown lead, which unlikely to happen but could happen, they could take him out with the ability to put him back in. But Beck, I mean, if you're a bettor in this spot, you obviously can't touch this line if you like Alabama. You have to wait, right?
You have to, and something's odd about the line because you got a quarterback that's banged up for Alabama. If you look at the schedules, I mean, LSU's got way more impressive resume. I feel like the line was set because of where it's being played, almost like that 3-point rule in the NFL. The home team always gets 3 extra points. I feel like there's something about that line that is being played in Alabama because I personally think LSU is going to win the game. I think this is the year they finally get over the hump. They haven't beat them since like 2011. And, I mean, they arguably have the best quarterback in the nation. Their defense is looking solid. I got LSU winning 31-28.
Wow. Now, let me throw this one out at you, Token, before we wrap up on this one. The preseason line for this game, same teams.
Yeah.
Alabama 17.
Yeah.
What changed? What changed? Joe Burrow just emerged?
Well,
He's the same quarterback who played against Alabama last year at home.
Yeah, but, I mean, he's been impressive against a lot better teams than Alabama has played this year so far and all that. And, I mean, two as a question mark.
Florida?
Yeah. Florida's decent.
Yeah, I mean, he looked okay against Auburn. Granted, the weather wasn't great.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you look at the schedule, who do they play? They play Vandy. Again, Beck mentioned it earlier, the win against Texas doesn't look so great anymore, especially if they lose this week. They'll be a 4-loss team.
Yeah.
I don't want to use this word, but and it's hard to say. Actually, you know what? It's not even the right word to use, but I'm going to say it. In terms of SEC football, I think LSU's a fraud.
Ruh-roh.
I think they're going to get. I know. I could be eating a lot of crow here, but I think LSU. I just don't see it. I mean, what changed to make that line? And again, if Tua doesn't play, I get the line. Actually, I don't get the line if Tua doesn't play. But the preseason line was 17 points.
Yeah, that's...
Vegas, well, we're in Vegas, but Vegas, the bookmakers are way smarter than us. And no disrespect to you, Beck, because I have LSU plus 14, so I'm kind of in the same thought process as you. I don't know about the win, but the more I start to actually think about, and break this game down, the preseason line is obviously, to me, crazy, but why that?
What are they basing that off?
Yeah, why that?
It's almost like the rankings, though. What are you basing the rankings off of when we haven't even played a game yet? I mean, what was Texas preseason? 7?
Yeah, but I mean, last year
they're not even ranked now.
Last year at home with the same team, LSU was shut out 29-0.
Yeah. So maybe based off of that, as well as they wouldn't think LSU would. They probably think LSU have 1 or 2 losses by now.
Maybe, but I mean, LSU, again, that schedule, where you find your losses? Maybe Auburn?
I was going to say Auburn would be the most likely candidate, yeah.
I guess.
Or Texas, maybe, but...
Interesting.
Or Florida.
I think Florida was a fraud, too, but that's just me. That's just bias talking.
Yeah.
You're one of the... You're one of them guys that thinks almost everybody stinks, right?
No, I don't.
Not
Oh.
UCF.
I think Florida's defense is phenomenal. But yeah, no, I think UCF. I've told you this. I think Dylan Gabriel is going to be a terrible quarterback because he stares down his receiver. Now he can obviously evolve, but as long as you're staring down your receiver, they're never going to beat a Power 5 opponent.
Yeah, you need to develop him pretty handily.
Yeah, and I thought Mackenzie Milton had done that obviously before his injury, and obviously Dylan Gabriel is a true freshman, so he can do that. But if he doesn't, he's going to be a bad quarterback. No, I don't think every team stinks. I think again, this is being labeled as the game of the century, and the last few times Alabama and LSU have lined up against each other, it has been anything but. Alabama has controlled this series. Now, you're absolutely right. Joe Burrow has taken on a new life from last year's beatdown to this year's beatdown, which is obviously the reason for the line movement. And you know Vegas is not going to want a 2 versus 3 with a 16.5 point spread.
All right.
So I don't know. I just part of me thinks Alabama by 7 to 10. So I think. I don't know. If you've listened to the podcast enough, folks, you have seen me talk myself in and out of bets, and Token can attest to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sometimes he'll completely go 180 and...
In the middle of my sentence.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the late games. Wrap it up here a little bit. We'll just go through these real quick. Missouri against Georgia. We talked about Georgia. I think this is an easy game to handicap because I think Georgia has to do everything in their power to remain competitive, and they have to stay in front of Florida. I'm trying to find it here on the screen as I
16.5.
16.5. Yeah. That being said, Kelly Bryant's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah.
And I can't find this game anywhere. There it is.
48 the totals.
48. There it is. Man, I hate this freaking site. I got to find a new one.
Yeah, I hear. It lags, and if you click on...
It lags and refreshes itself.
It does, yeah.
Screw you, covers.com.
Yeah, well, there was one time switched like 2 points or something one time within 10 minutes.
Well, that's just line movement.
Yeah,
But anyways, let's get back on this. Like we said, Georgia is, what did we say, 16.5?
Yeah.
That line has actually come down from 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
What do you think? Georgia's 1-4 at home against the spread.
Yeah, I kind of like Georgia in this matchup. I mean, Missouri on the road is tough to take, and Georgia, they're probably trying to do everything they can to stay in this playoff race.
Okay.
Somebody fall over?
No, we got dogs in here too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, as I say that, I stop and think, all Georgia has to do is win at this point. The question is, would winning the SEC East, Beck, and beating whoever comes out of the West, is that enough? Does that put them in the playoff?
I think it could be based on whatever happens above them right now. I mean, if Ohio State and Penn State both lose, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at a couple things in this game that, A, I don't know why Missouri's always ranked. They're not now, but they were a couple weeks ago. And B, I've been staring at this score from last week the whole time you guys were talking. They lost to Kentucky 29-7. Yeah. I'd have to think Georgia's way better than Missouri. I think Missouri is pretty much shut her down for the rest of the year. If they're losing to Kentucky 29-7, and before that they lost to Vanderbilt 21-14 the week before. So I don't see how Missouri takes any adversity early in this game and then gives a crap the rest of the way. I got Georgia winning going away 38-7.
Well, and it's going to make it even worse. Actually, we're looking at, as I'm reading this now, Kelly Bryant is doubtful for the game. So you're probably right. That if that's the case. Yeah, easy win going away for Georgia. I mean, they've got. I wanted to say before that South Carolina game, and even still after the South Carolina, remember the conversation we had with Jake Fromm and Justin Fields?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not looking in my favor with Justin Fields leading the number one team in the nation. But I still think from a quarterback standpoint, from a passing standpoint, Jake Fromm is solid.
He is. I mean, don't get it wrong, but I mean, look at the defenses that they have played too. I mean,
also fair.
But you can only play who's in front of you too. So
yeah, still
his worst game this year was South Carolina, and they lost. So obviously Georgia's hopes are on his shoulders. He looked terrible that game. So I don't think this is going to be a hiccup game for him. But you asked, could they run the table? It's really going to be up to Jake Fromm.
That's fair. Yep. All right, let's touch on Clemson and NC State, because obviously Clemson's number 5. Again, we've talked about this. This is just a win, and I imagine you're in for Clemson. I don't think they're going to leave the defending national champion out. But, again, I can't figure out what the hell they think.
Especially if they just run the whole table. So
yeah, and, it's crazy. I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence because, everybody's saying he's having a terrible season. And he's not having a great season, don't get me wrong. He's completing 66% of his passes. He has 8 interceptions. But everything was set so high last year. And by him, I mean, he did it, for the way he played. And this team, I don't know. The question really for me is they're going to walk through the rest of their schedule and more than likely, obviously, going to win the ACC. They've got to find the switch and turn it on.
Yeah, they got to find that power boost and just run away with it.
Yeah, I mean, the fun thing would sit here and be is if South Carolina could ruin 2 teams' playoff hopes by Georgia being left out and then beating Clemson at the end of the year. That would be an interesting
twist.
But nevertheless, the line is 33. You got any thoughts on this? Total 54?
No, not at all.
Peck?
Here's another one where you told me the total. I didn't know the total. I knew the line when I picked the score of this, but here's my extensive notes to this. Clemson just got snubbed in the polls. The Wolfpack are in for a long day. I got Clemson 52-3, and I think the committee unnecessarily gave them an edge that nobody really needed to see because they're going to cruise through the rest of their schedule. Although you did make a point about South Carolina, that would be hilarious. How many times? What kind of dog is that? That sounds small.
A jerk.
It's funny that we could have a 7-5 team or whatever South Carolina's record is now that it could end up that could potentially ruin 2 powerhouse seasons. But this week, this isn't even a game worth watching. I think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, I think I got to agree with that in that spot too. All right, Notre Dame and the Dukies. Notre Dame's an 8-point favorite on the road. We have a 51 spot here. This is a game for smart people.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in my opinion, Notre Dame's defense has looked a little weak as of late. But, however, I think they kind of changed it up on this one. And this game comes down to a lot of defense, and I like the under.
I've been bored with Notre Dame football since, Brady Quinn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That shit bores me to watch.
Yeah.
All their games.
I do see Notre Dame winning this game, but, however, the under is probably the better play. I think they win 21-17 and Duke with the cover.
Yeah, I will say this. I'm not going to bet the game, but I think Notre Dame wins this game by double digits. And I'm not going to bet the game for the simple fact, Beck, is that I don't want to watch it.
Right. Yeah, they've gotten pretty vanilla. I don't know how long they're going to keep Kelly around. They keep underachieving. At least it seems like underachieving. Maybe they're overachieving and they're just overranked all the time. But I'm with you. I think it's double digits. I think Duke might give them some fits early because they're at home and they got kind of a unique style sometimes. They got a old veteran coach, but I think Notre Dame's got too much depth and too much speed for Duke. I got 28-17 Notre Dame.
Fair enough. All right, and to wrap it up here, I have Iowa State traveling to Norman to take on the 7-1 Oklahoma Sooners. Token, it's a 2-touchdown spread in this spot.
Yeah, I see 14.5 actually. plus the hook.
Yeah, tomato, tomato.
Yeah, that hook. Every hook matters. This one, I heard they're not going to run out.
You want to be a dick about it? I see 16 at DraftKings.
Well, this one I've heard they're not going to have the wagon out on the field after the incident.
I think they got rid of that after the last game before too.
Yeah. So maybe the wheels are coming off the wagon for Oklahoma. No pun intended. However, no play on this at all. I don't like the spread. I don't like the total. This one will be a fun one to watch, though.
Yeah, the interesting stat I see in this game, Beck, is that while Oklahoma's averaging 50 points a game and their defense has been a little better, giving up only 23, they haven't forced a turnover in 5 games.
Yep, and that kind of plays right into what my total score is. First, Iowa State's one of them teams you can't take lightly, but they are. Their coach is being mentioned in bigger jobs. He might have his head elsewhere, but Oklahoma's in threat level midnight right now. They can't afford to lose, and they probably can't afford too many close games. The rest of the way, they got Iowa State, Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State. I think the wagon not being there is worth a half a point. But I think Oklahoma's going to come out with their hair on fire, and I think they're going to win it. It's going to be a shootout. 45-31 is the total score I have.
Well, lucky for the Sooners, history is on their side. Token, you ready for this stat?
Yeah.
The Oklahoma Sooners boast a .916 winning percentage against Iowa State. They are 75-6-2 all time.
75-6-2.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
do you happen to know what the last 10 years has been?
I do not have that with me.
I was just curious.
Token will get that. The last time they played last year, it was 37-27 Oklahoma. Token, you're going to get some crack research on that before we wrap up the program here. I'm interested. I'm kind of interested in this game too. I think the shootout's probably going to be a little one-sided. Therefore, I'm curious on what the total could finish at here. It's already gone up 2 points in the last few days. I don't have a problem with Oklahoma scoring points. I'm not so sure about Iowa State. They are averaging 35 points a game, but haven't done too much the last few weeks in that span. Although Brock Purdy could change that around. I never quite know with him. He's a very hot and cold roller coastery type quarterback. You got anything there, Token?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up right now.
All right. As long as you're not trying to pull it out, I'm good. Yeah. I'm gonna say this one deserves a teaser. I'm gonna say Oklahoma 7 or 7.5, and I'm gonna say it goes over 62. So I'm gonna tease both of those down in that spot. All right, Token. I got to wrap up the show. What you got?
It's not letting me pull up.
All right, fuck it.
Any of the old scores.
Beck, you got to do your own. You got to do your own research there.
I'll do some self-research. There you go.
We'll tweet it out.
Okay, actually, now I have it.
Oh, we got it.
Yeah. So last year, Oklahoma won 37-27. The year before, Iowa State won 38-31.
Well, there you go. Iowa State got a win
on the road.
So in the last 10 years, what's the record?
The last 10 matchups, Iowa State won once.
Okay, so it's 9-1.
9-1, yeah.
They have got one in the last 2 years, so make that what you will. So, all right, the late games. Anybody got action?
No.
Negative.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up here. We're only about 38 minutes over the projected time we were going to run, so perfect. Nailed it.
Not too bad.
All right. Token, you got to make a bold prediction.
A game this week goes to at least 4 overtimes.
Beck, you got anything?
Aside from my LSU winning?
Is that really bold?
Not really.
No, didn't you say they're 16-point dogs
6
at one point?
In the beginning of the season.
Well, they have bold prediction. You want a bold prediction off on the fly here?
Yeah.
Well, I can't go with
that's bold.
I can't go with a game.
That's bold enough. But if something else is on your head, go ahead.
Wyoming beats Boise State. There you go.
Ooh,
that's kind of bold.
I like that. I like that. That's fair. I will say
Mountain West is crazy.
That's for sure. Especially if you add Hawaii in that mix too.
yeah, Hawaii games are always kind of fun.
Yeah, I know.
But my bold prediction of the week,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I guess it may not be that bold. Minnesota is 9-0 for the first time in 115 years.
That was going to be my second pick. Minnesota beats Penn State. But I didn't think it was bold enough.
All right, let's wrap it up here. I'll thank the sponsors one more time before we go. We've got 12-Ounce Sports Radio playing our show every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday and Saturday are, of course, NCAA football pods. And Sunday is NFL picks, which I think I just took the lead, but we'll find out more tomorrow. When we record.
Possibly, yeah.
Seat Giant, promo code 12-Ounce Sports, 12OZ Sports for your discounted sporting events, concerts, and theater tickets. So again, for Token Tony, obviously the owner/utility man at the 12-Ounce Sports Beck, I am Aaron. We appreciate you all listening. We will catch you on the next one. And if it's Friday and you're listening, hopefully UCF is winning.